Hello, and welcome to our monthly online event, Relationship Networking with networking expert Michelle Lederman. Michelle is the author of the 11 Laws of Likability, which shows you how to build personal connections for professional results. We will bring her on in just a few minutes, and in the meantime, hello, I'm Judy Goss, the founder and CEO of Over 40 Females, and we're excited to announce that we have started having many more online educational teleseminars about everything from business to finance to spirituality. We pair experts together to talk about topics that are similar and that can help our members succeed in business or better their lives in every way. So please visit our calendar on the website for a full listing of our educational offerings and continual events that are both informative and fun. That's over40females.com. Okay, some brief announcements and quickly about who we are. Over 40 Females is a nationally acclaimed live and online networking community specifically tailored for women over the age of 40, and we provide resources, personal and professional development, inspiration, and support. And we've recently merged with What Women Want Talk Radio for even more exposure for our members and continual support for getting your voice out there. What Women Want currently has over 30,000 listeners a month and airs on latalkradio.com live every Wednesday, or you can find us the download on iTunes or Stitcher.com. We are constantly getting our members noticed and in the press, and this is Jerry Stengel and I from New York City on ABC Eyewitness News discussing female entrepreneurs. And we had a woman from Chicago, Julia Klein, get her own segment on NBC, Helen Powers also, and many more success stories on our testimonial page. And we're proud of the fact that we are constantly getting our members so much recognition for their businesses and their services, and not just on TV, but in every form of media out there, magazines, newspapers, blogs, everything. So we're proud of that. I just want to remind you as members, please go on and log into the website for your many benefits. It's so important as we pick members out from what they write in their profiles to present for TV segments, press features, website features, book features. We have many, many amazing opportunities for you to promote yourselves and your businesses. So go in there and fill out your profiles, or else we won't know who you are. This is Lori Gower from our South Metro Minnesota chapter. Online benefits are available to all membership types, including the Connect Live memberships. Okay, What Women Want Talk Radio, another way to get your story or business promoted. As I mentioned before, Over 40 Females put What Women Want Talk Radio together, the first networking company with press, continual press, I should say, and the host is me, Judy Goss. So members, of course, get top consideration to be interviewed for What Women Want Talk Radio, and again, it airs every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, and we're also on iTunes and Stitcher. Now, if you would like to be on the show, please email us the pitches at whatwomenwantshow@gmail.com because we are constantly looking for guests to interview. These are our current live locations. If you're looking for live events to attend in person, you can find out where and when on our website, over40females.com, and click under locations. Each location has events at least once a month, some of them twice a month, and we just launched in southern New Jersey last week and are launching in Dallas, Texas, in the Lake Ray Hubbard area in a few days on February 4th. So, of course, but we always invite you to join us here online every month as well. Now, I live in New York, so the recent snowstorm made me want to book my next vacation. So if you're looking to do that as well, try our national travel sponsor, Cappy Devlin. Cappy is a 100% women-owned business for 44 years, so let's support her. Call Cappy next time you want to travel. Her number is 888-227-7975. Okay, it's time to bring on Michelle Lederman. Michelle Lederman is known for her energetic, engaging, and authentic presentations. An expert on workplace communications and relationships, Michelle's mission is to help people communicate and lead with confidence, clarity, and connection. She's an accomplished speaker, trainer, coach, and the author of 2 books, including The 11 Laws of Likability and Heroes Get Hired, and recently named by Forbes as one of the 25 professional networking experts to watch in 2015, and has appeared all over the media, including CBS, Fox, NBC, NPR, The Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and Mother Magazine, among many others, like What Women Want Talk Radio. Michelle's been on that too. After a decade in finance, Michelle was frustrated by the lack of effective communication and support within organizations, especially as she became a people manager. She founded Executive Essentials, a training company that provides communications and leadership programs, as well as executive coaching services to enable others to succeed professionally where she struggled. A former New York University professor, financial executive, and recovering CPA, Michelle teaches from experience and shares what she learned during her extensive career. Michelle's clients range from academia to nonprofit to Fortune 500 companies, including Madison Square Garden, Citi, J&J, Deutsche Bank, GE, Columbia Business School, Target, Sony, and the Museum of Modern Art. Michelle, nice to have you here today.
Great to be here, Judy. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our absolute pleasure. So take it away.
Well, and for those women who are listening, if some of the women want a new job, I forgot to tell you, I have a third book out now, and it's called Nail the Interview, Land the Job. And at the end, I'll put some links to give some free giveaways for those.
Well, congratulations. That'll be a book many people can read and benefit from. That is for sure.
It's so funny. I've actually had people read Nail the Interview, Land the Job for dating advice because dating and interviewing are very similar, and I love that angle of it. But
yeah, I guess so. That's excellent.
Today we're going to talk about relationship networking and really thinking about professionally how we can make those personal connections for professional results. And I'm going to put a couple questions up as those people who are out there listening. I want you to think in your head about the word associations you have when you hear that word networking. And what in your mind are the qualities of a good networker? And I'm going to actually throw this to you, Judy. What do you have some word associations with?
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I'm like, wow, what do I think besides my company, over 40 females? So what do I think when I think of networking, or what do I think a good networker, the qualities that a good networker has?
Start with some of the word associations. So some people will tell me
I automatically think of groups of people.
Okay.
Just like random groups of people coming together and, trying to get something done, whether it's social networking, dating, business networking, that type of thing. So I automatically, I guess, think of just a whole bunch of people together in one room.
Okay, so I'm hearing crowd and I'm hearing purpose. And we all have these visuals and we all have these kind of almost emotional associations with it. I will tell you some of the things that people tell me when I say, tell me what you think of when you hear the word networking. They'll say, used car salesman.
Oh, my gosh.
One of my favorites.
Changed that a little bit with my company.
People will tell me, anxiety. They'll tell me fear. Sometimes when it's somebody like you who really thrives on it, they'll say fun or exciting or making friends, which is really my favorite definition because that's really all networking is. It's just another way of saying making friends. Mm-hmm. So I want us to kind of think and understand where our head mentally is in terms of our association with it. And one of my goals is always to take the work out of networking, and that's why we kind of shift a few things around in how we think about it. And how about with a good networker? What are some of the qualities you think of a good networker?
I think you definitely have to be outgoing, and you definitely have to receive, anything that comes to you as well. So by that, I mean, you can't walk into a networking event or a meeting and be closed-minded or, have your hands crossed in front of you and not be open to new ideas, new people, and personalities.
So I'm hearing watching your body language, being open-minded. And what was the first thing that you had said?
Body language is big. What was the first thing I said? You have to be open-minded. I'm sorry, outgoing.
That's right. And you know what? That's actually one of the most common responses I get is that outgoing people are better networkers. And it's actually one of the things that I like to disabuse people of that notion. Although I agree, sometimes networking comes more easily to the outgoing and the extrovert personality because they like the crowd, they enjoy and feed off of the energy of everybody else. But that said, they might not make those deeper connections as quickly. So they might meet a lot of people, but they might not meet that one person and really build that solid relationship. And so for all those people out there listening who might feel like, well, I'm not outgoing, I'll never be a good networker, it's not true. There's actually no true definition of a good networker. I mean, I really liked some of the things that you said, Judy, about being open-minded and watching your body language and your facial expressions and, for me, listening and curiosity.
Accepting, right.
Right? Those are some of the things, and those are some things that introverts are way better at than those extroverts over here. We're not.
Yeah, no, you definitely have to be accepting and listen to people. That's true.
So I just want people to recognize that there is no one right way to network. There is no perfect image of a good networker. Introverts actually have some skills in terms of being stronger in the one-to-one, being stronger in the listening skills, and going deeper with people that are, I think, some of the three most important qualities when it comes to networking. So we all have our strengths, and what we want to do is figure out how to use those strengths. But for people who are still a little hesitant about networking, I want to just give you a couple statistics out there of why you want to do this. 90% of executive level jobs come from networking. So for the over 40 female crowd of what women want, you're at that level that most likely your job is going to come from who you know. And if you have some kids that are coming into the job market, it's about 50 to 70% of all jobs overall, depending on which study you reference, of all jobs come from networking. So clearly, for professional reasons, we want to do it. We want to be on social media because 92% of companies are using that for recruiting. Although be careful, and we can talk a little bit about social media, but 69% of companies are rejecting a candidate based on what they find out online about them. So that social media is a double-edged sword. But my favorite reason, and the subtitle of my book, is that people would rather do business with a person that they like and trust rather than someone they don't, even if that person has a better product. Even if that person has a product with a lower price, the relationship wins. And so that networking, that building of relationships, that making friends is so critical to your professional results.
Okay, so we had a question. So before the teleseminar a few days ago, we emailed and posted on social media. If you have a question about networking, let us know. So one of the questions was, and you're talking about, friendly and relationships, what's a good icebreaker to meet new people that is midway between that friendly and professional attitude? Because you don't want to be too friendly and you don't want to be too professional, right?
I actually love this question, and this is part of the shift in our mindset. So when we talk about relationship networking versus traditional networking, we're shifting a few things. And one of the things that you just mentioned is one of the things that we're shifting. We're shifting from this business-only concept of what we'll talk about to talking about anything and broadening the topics in which we're willing to connect with other people on. So we're going to brainstorm a whole lot of ideas around how to start a conversation. But you really do want to think about it. It doesn't have to be professionally based. You can start a conversation on the fact that, we just had a 30-inch storm of the century, or at least of the last decade, in the Northeast. And, there's a lot of conversations you can have about the weather that are not actually superficial, and they could go into a lot of different places. And I think maybe we'll take that example through the whole talk. Two other shifts I want you to think about in this relationship networking versus traditional networking approach is that it is a long-term approach. It is not a short-term approach. It is not a let's network for just this need. We are networking for building relationship over time. And we don't necessarily know what we need right now, but we build a relationship. It's kind of like build the ark before the storm.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
The third shift is it's not about you. And I know everyone's going, yeah, it's about them. Well, no, it's not. It's not about because if it's about them, then they're saying it's about me, and it still doesn't work. It's about the relationship and understanding that it's the connection and the communication between the two is what it is about and not either of the individuals. So let's take that question that was posed a little further, and we're going to talk about having that conversation, and we're going to look at 4 laws: curiosity, listening, similarity, and mood memory. And this is the midsection of the book around the actual conversation. So you're at one of these large crowd events in your mind, and we're meeting people, we're there to start making connections, and you want to start with an ask. This is the easiest icebreaker, is a question. And you can have lots of fun questions. Sometimes when I do book signings, I come up with questions of my day. Some of my questions have been, what's something you like to do in your free time? Or what would you do if you had $10 million in the bank? We had a big Powerball lately. So, just fun little icebreaker questions. Now, I'm in a different kind of position. I'm sitting there and people are coming up for a book signing. But you can have questions like that in just, your everyday interactions. hey, any good restaurants you've been to lately? Or, hey, what's your favorite vacation? I'm planning something. Any recommendations? So, again, questions that you actually care about the answer. You don't want to ask a question that you really don't care about the answer because the conversation won't go anywhere. So use open phrasing, and open phrasing encourages that other person to talk. So if I said, hey, Judy, do you like going on vacations? You might say, yeah, right? And then we're done.
But you don't think that's too friendly? Like if somebody is working, the room, looking for professional connections and things like that, and they know that maybe the person they're talking to could provide that for them, you don't think that's too casual?
That might not be for that environment. And so you do want to think about the environment.
So there's different environments, different events, and different ways to approach it. I see.
There's and I have a whole list of different things. So it could be, let's use the environment. Maybe our opening question is, which breakout session are you going to? Have you heard anything about this one? Or
it could be really simple.
It could be really simple. You can absolutely use the professional environment you're in. You could use the media. You might not want to use, politics right now because that's a little hot topic, so to speak. So you might not want to go diving into, hey, what do you think about Hillary? Or, but you can use something in the news, or maybe there was commuting issues with the snowstorm. You might ask, hey, did you have any trouble, commuting in today? How are the transit systems from Long Island or wherever you're coming from? So again, it's environment, but maybe it's not quite all the way to what do you do, right? Which is, it is an opening question, but it's an opening question that can be very limiting in a conversation. Because
and cliche.
Yeah, and I personally hate the question. I have a terrible time answering the question. And oftentimes I'll flip it on them and I'll say, well, for work or for fun or today, just to loosen up that formality of the what do you do question. Because what happens is people are vetting you, and they're basically deciding, are you worth talking to or not? And that's one of the reasons I don't like that question, because it ends the conversation. And what I'm looking to do is start the conversation and keep it going, to leverage that curiosity in your question and then extend the conversation. So when you extend the conversation, you're bringing in those listening skills that we were talking about, and you might probe with some further questions. And be careful with a probe. You don't want to interrogate. It's not machine gun questions after. So you want to intersperse listening and probing, and listening and sharing. So if you were to say, hey, which breakout session are you going to? A probing question could be, why did you choose that one? Or have you heard anything about that speaker? And then you would do a share. You might say, I'm thinking about going to this one. Do you know anybody else, or do you know where this room is located? Or something. Again, it's a back and forth. You're trying to give some information. You're trying to get some information and build some connection. Right, so now we've asked, we've extended, we're now looking for that place of connection. And in professional environments, that connection could be that we're from the same company, or we know somebody from the same company, but we're looking for that similarity, because when we start to connect and have a foundation for an ongoing relationship, it's not going to be just because, what do you do? It's going to be because maybe we sat next to each other in that event, and I complimented your necklace, or liked your tie. Well, I know we're a female audience, but you could be sitting next to a man.
Exactly.
So what we're looking for in our conversation is what's going on with them. What brought you here? What are you working on right now? What kind of connections are you looking to make? Because even though they might be looking to make those connections there at that event, maybe you have some of those connections for them. And so what you're looking to do is seek a next step. How can I extend this conversation past the first one? And once you find that reason for following up of hey, I might know somebody you should talk to, let's follow up after this. Let me send you an email. Let's link in. Let's set up a coffee. Let's something.
Well, that's actually one of the other questions that we got is when you follow up with someone after networking, what's the best way to engage them and have a follow-up chat? I guess they're thinking right away, maybe the email or the phone call.
Well, one of the things you're looking for before you end the conversation is what that next step is, and I'm going to go into a whole pile in a few more slides around different ways to follow up. But you do want to think about all those possibilities so that you almost establish that follow-up in that first conversation. So it's not like, now I have to go through this pile of business cards. You already know what you're going to do. And I'll often write on the back of a business card, what they were wearing or what we chatted about or what they might have needed. And it could have been, a snow shoveler. It could have been, I'm going to take that idea through the whole conversation here. It could have been a travel agent. It could have been a connection to somebody that I know professionally in a field. So personal to professional, we're broadening it. And so then you're ready to close. And once you kind of have that follow-up, it's time for you to extend the conversation beyond the two of you. So people often talk to me about, how do I end the conversation without, looking like I'm no longer interested? Everyone's there for the same reason. You might simply say, hey, let's go get a drink, or let's continue to mingle. Let's go see who's over here. And you can invite them to go with you and broaden the circle a little bit. Or you might just do the easy one and say, I have to hit the restroom. It was great chatting with you.
That's a good one.
Good one. But you do want to consider mood memory. And mood memory is the concept that people will remember far more how you make them feel than anything that you say. And so you don't want to lose and make them feel like they weren't important on that close. So still kind of keep that energy and that warmth with them. So now let's go to your question, which is the follow-up. And I think one of the things that's important to think about with the follow-up, and everyone should be thinking, and I'm going to keep this question before I flip to the next slide and give you some other people's answers, is what holds you back from following up, right? You had a conversation, you're back at your office, you've got that pile of business cards, and you just avoid them like the plague. So let's see if your answers match some of the ones that I get over time. And you can see some of the bigger ones are the ones that I get more often. I always am surprised that no time is not huge on this page, because that's my personal excuse. If you could see the graveyard of business cards in my office, it's sad, because you can't get to them all. And I'm here to give you permission not to get to them all. I want you to prioritize the cards of the people that you really felt a connection with, the people that you really thought there was potential with, not making it a marathon to get through every single one. But I also want to start to minimize and maybe even eliminate some of these excuses for not following up. Like I have nothing to offer, or I have no reason, or I don't want to bother them. And can't remember who they were? Put notes.
Yeah, one of my networking video tips, I had like a 30 or 60-second video tip. It was just bring a Sharpie. Bring a Sharpie and write it on the back of the cards.
Oh, interesting. I just use a pen, but I like the Sharpie.
Yeah, because some of those cards are shiny, They have like the glossy, covering on it, and you can't really write it with a pen. So bring a Sharpie.
We have to add that don't have shiny cards.
Exactly.
All right, so we're going to eliminate these excuses, and we're going to look at that post-conversation time frame and 3 laws: familiarity, giving, and patience. So familiarity is the concept that you want to stay in their mind, but not be in their face. So people feel comfortable with who and what they know. And so as you become more familiar, people become more comfortable, and that's when you become more front of mind. And that's what you're trying to be, is a little bit more front of mind. So when opportunities arise, you're the one that I'm thinking of. And so there's some simple ways to stay in somebody's mind. And again, that question about the follow-up, these are pieces of it. And you want to think about all of these as possibilities or tools in the toolbox that you intersperse. You don't want to go through, do all of them to the same person. And you want to kind of think about what their preferences are. At the end of that conversation, you can say, do you prefer LinkedIn, or do you want to connect on Facebook, or are you on Twitter, or is it a phone call, or is it an email, or do you like to text? Really figure out what channel they like. So we'll talk a little bit more about social media. Light touches are the concept of getting your name in front of somebody without any request. And what that means is, hey, I'm going to an event tomorrow night in New York City, and I know the father of a person running the event. And so I emailed her, and I said, hey, if your dad's not going to be there, will you please send him my regards? And that's it. I'm not asking for him to call me. I'm not asking him to do anything for me, but I'm saying, oh, you're going to be somewhere and see so-and-so. Tell them I said hi. Because now you're back there. And then those people can have a conversation about, how do you know Michelle? And now you're more there, and you're more familiar, and you're more present. And you have more points of association and similarity, and therefore trust starts to grow. Light touches could be the birthday. Facebook and LinkedIn and even Skype now are really great at telling you whose birthday it is. So say happy birthday, but maybe extend it a little bit. Sometimes I'll put a note saying, I hope you're celebrating with excess, or for example, my friend's birthday was the other day, and I said, I see you got a lot of snow for your birthday. So it really depends on just personalizing. It could be congratulations. You graduated from something. You won an award. You were mentioned in the press. You had a kid that had some kind of special event, whatever it might be, promotion, the anniversary on LinkedIn. People love that one. But you know what? It is a great way. Apparently, I just had an anniversary on LinkedIn, didn't even know it, and I had about 100 people reach out to me saying congratulations, and it just gave me a great excuse to be like, hi, how's it going? These are light touches. Technology is your friend. When we think technology and you don't have a reason to reach out, there's so many mechanisms out there. One of my favorites is Newsle, NEWSLE.com, and that's a way where you can have push notifications of people that you're following in the press. So it's a little different. It's not a Twitter where they're posting things constantly. It is for those people who are maybe higher up in organizations that are being mentioned or doing blogging or referenced in news releases. So, for example, I'm friends with the CEO of a company, and I keep up with him on Newsle. And so that when I reach out to him once a year for us to get together, I can say, hey, I saw that this is what you're doing because I'm keeping up on it. Or even I could send him an article and say, hey, great article. Don't know if you saw this. And give that, get that reason.
That's fantastic. I've never heard of that.
Newsle I've been using it probably for a year or two at this point, but for a while it was my new addiction. But it is for people who are a little bit more out there, so you're going to have to use Google. I mean, everyone, Google's a verb now. Google alerts are great. So if you're thinking about a specific industry or a specific company or a specific person, have a Google alert on them. And I also would recommend having a Google alert on you to see how you're showing up in the news.
Definitely.
And online. But, if you have an interview somewhere or you're trying to land a client, you should be making sure that you're aware of all the news that's coming in. I know somebody who went for a job interview and didn't check the paper that morning, and it was with a financial services firm. But if she had a Google alert pushing her some news about what was going on in the markets, she could have checked that right before going into the interview and been up to speed when they said, so how's the market doing today? So Google alerts can be really powerful in just having that information coming to you. And, oftentimes when I do these talks live, the whole room will brainstorm different tools and techniques out there. Here's one more little trick of mine is I love when you link and hook the social media app within your mail system. And if you don't have one, I used to use Xobni, which is XOBNI, or the word inbox spelled backwards. And what that enabled me to do is I would highlight somebody's email, and I'd be able to see the entire trail of our conversation, and I would also be able to see their picture. Another system that does this is Contactually, and that's a system that you can really kind of manage your relationships. That's taken it up a level, I will tell you that much. But I love being able to look at somebody's face when I'm talking to them or writing to them because it helps with the connection. But I did promise to talk about social media a little bit, so I'm going to talk about the three big ones. Now, there's thousands, literally thousands of social media apps and tools out there. My feeling is pick three and no more, but pick at least one. I do think you need to have an online presence, and if you're scared of all of them, the one that I would recommend is LinkedIn. And that is a more professional platform. But it really does help you stay in somebody's mind, like I said, with the congratulations, or putting a status update, or liking somebody, or adding a comment, or answering a question. And you can do that on Facebook or LinkedIn or even Twitter. And you have to think that there's different audiences for all three. So think about where the people you want to connect with are. And the truth is, I really kind of went into Twitter kicking and screaming. My publisher said I had to do it, and I didn't get it. And now I've connected with people all over the world that I would have never had any access to whatsoever, yet we've really had conversations via Twitter. And most recently, just direct messaging with somebody in Germany. It's crazy. I love it. And if they called me up, I'd answer the phone. So it's amazing how you really can build those relationships even initially through social media. I think Facebook is a little bit more of the personal side, and I'll put my links up to all of these later, but, I separate out my personal Facebook page from my professional Facebook page, and you may want to consider doing those things and watching your privacy settings and all that good stuff. But I also love the chat. The chat button on Facebook for me is phenomenal because you can see who's online and you can say, your name popped up. How's it going? Hope all's well, BRB, and you're not going to be right back because nobody has that expectation that you're going to stay in this long conversation. But you just had a light touch and you stayed in their mind. So some ideas for that follow-up are just the light touches, connecting via social media, connecting and keeping your name in front of them, maybe tagging them in social media, retweeting them. All these things are actually what I would call gifts. And that's really where my passion lies, is in the law of giving. So much so I give everyone this chapter for free because I want everybody to live with this philosophy. Give first. Give because you can. Give often. Give without expectation. Giving creates value for all, and all results are exponentially higher as a result. So I'll put a link up at the end so anybody can download this chapter. And for those people who say I have nothing to offer or I don't want to bother them and, they don't want to talk to me, you want to think about how can you add value to that person. And when you think in the terms of what can I do for you, how can I help you, what do you need, let me tell you, people will want to be in touch with you even if you don't have anything to offer right then, even if you don't have any means right then. The fact that you think that way, that you take that perspective is compelling. So let's talk giving. Here's 3 of my favorites. Introduce, invite, inform. You know people. And that's actually one of my favorite things about LinkedIn, too, is it's very easy to figure out who you know. People often say, hey, do you know anybody at such and such a place? And I say, off the top of my head, I can't think of anybody, but please do go into my LinkedIn, search and call my contacts, let me know who I know, and I'm happy to help make an introduction. So that alone is a really powerful reason to be on LinkedIn, is because it enables you to be more giving. It enables you to figure out where your commonalities and your connections might be. I often go into LinkedIn before I'm going to a conference, figure out who the speakers are, link into them ahead of time, and send a little note. So then when I see them live, it's almost like a warm introduction. So when you do make introductions, ensure that you're giving people the reason of why you're putting them together. What's the value to each party? And if it's skewed in one way versus the other, then you do want to think about asking permission before making that introduction. Invitations, you don't have to be throwing a party to send an invitation. You can tell people about an event that you aren't even going to. I used to do that every year for Columbia Women in Business. I used to be on the panel, and I haven't been doing the conference the last few years, but I still always announce it because I thought it was a great conference. So it could be, I remember when I was working with NBC on my second book, and I was working with the digital publishing division. And I got the notices from my school. So Columbia Business School was having an event on publishing in the digital age. I wasn't going. But you sure as hell know that I sent that link to the head of digital publishing at NBC and said, hey, I saw this, thought you might be interested. I got an email back in 5 minutes saying, oh, my God, this is great. I'm going to go. Thank you so much for bringing it to my attention. I mean, anybody can do that. Anybody can understand what are the events out there and think about who do I know who could be interested. And at a minimum, even if you don't want to research events you're not going to, I want you to think about the events you are going to and think about who can you invite. And always invite somebody to any event you're going to. And the last one is information. You have so many resources. You have so much knowledge, and you don't even realize it. But what's more powerful is making the effort. I was once in a CEO's office, and he's telling me about what he's doing. He's starting this new company. It was so over my head, I couldn't even tell you. Techie, not my sweet spot. But I call up my husband, who is a techie, and I said, hey, he's trying to do this, and he's trying to do that, and do you have any ideas? And my husband gives me all these ideas. I'm like, go, email those to me, and anything else that comes to mind. And then I sent him to the CEO, and he was like, this is great. Now, that CEO could have probably figured out all of that information in 5 minutes on Google himself, but the fact is I made the effort. And that's what you're doing. You're showing somebody that you're making the effort to be of value to them, and that makes them want to stay connected to you.
So I feel
Make
like
sense?
this is the answer to one of the questions that was emailed in, which is how do you develop a relationship with professionals so over time they can get to know you and then feel comfortable referring business? Give.
So
give them something.
You want to connect with them both on the personal and the professional. There's
Right.
sometimes, for example, that I've said to people, look, they ask me for a financial advisor, so to speak. And I'll say, listen, I just started working with a financial advisor, so I can't attest to his ability to, make me loads of money. But what I can attest to is he's trustworthy, he's smart, he's staying on top of it. Like, I can tell you what I can tell you. And the reason is because I've known him for 5 years before I ever started working with him. And he wasn't, working me or trying to get my business for 5 years at all. He never tried to get my business. He just built a relationship with me. And when it was time for me to come and think about a financial advisor, he was the person I went to, and he got my business. And that's really that long-term approach. And I've got a big mouth, and now I'll start talking about him. So the one thing I do want to say is I do want people to have the perspective of giving. And I want you to go out there and say, how can I help you? What do you need? But I don't want you to forget about asking, because you need to be able to answer that question as well. When somebody says, what are you working on? What do you need? Have an answer ready. And even if they don't ask what they can do for you, you are allowed, and not only allowed, I encourage you, you must ask. Because if you don't ask, the answer is no. If you do ask, you immediately increase your odds. But what I want to talk about is the fact that there's a lot of different types of asks. And, excuse me, I actually have a full blog post on this, and I'll put my website up, and if you just put my website /blog, you can see, and I think I have a 5th ask now, the opt-out, the alternative, the shrinking, the convenient, and the non. And these are different ways that we can make an ask that makes it more comfortable for them and more comfortable for us, because asking is hard. So, how are we doing on time? How much time do I have?
I would say enough time to get to the next, few slides in about, 12 minutes or so? 10
okay,
minutes?
So I have some time. Perfect.
Yes, you have some time.
So then I will tell you a little bit about the types of asks, because I never know if I have enough
definitely.
time.
Your information is so good, I'm willing to stretch it out a little bit.
Thank you. Well, my favorite, and probably the one I use the most often, is the opt-out ask. And this is the idea that you're going to make it, and this is going to sound weird, but you're going to make it as easy as it is for them to say yes, for them to say no. Because yeses are easy and nos are hard. But we want to make it easy for them to say no. Because if we do, and they need to say no, then they're not uncomfortable, they're not avoiding us, and we're not risking the long-term relationship. So I will do something, for example, like I'll ask somebody for a book review, and I'll say, if you feel comfortable, or if your company allows you to put a recommendation on LinkedIn, or if you're not too busy. So I give them almost the excuse to give me as to why they need to say no. And then and I make it, no worries, I understand, no big deal, so that they don't feel like, oh, I feel bad, now I want to stay away from her. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't want those things. It doesn't mean that I don't want them to say yes. I just don't want to make them uncomfortable about saying no, because no is an answer you're going to get at times, which is why I developed some of the other asks. The alternative and the shrinking and the convenient I'm going to kind of talk about together. And this is the idea of, if I flipped it, people don't want to say no. They want to say yes instead, or yes if, or yes after, yes when. And so by giving them these different ways to do that. So alternative is, oh, could we do this or that? And they can have a choice. Shrinking could be going from, hey, can we do lunch, or if not, coffee? Or if we want to still continue to shrink, how about just a phone chat or a Skype? And the convenient one will make it about what's convenient for them. So would you like me to come to you or your office, or do you want me to coffee shop outside your office? Happy to, what time works best for you, what day of the week, really kind of making it as convenient for them as possible. And so all of these ways of making an ask minimize the need to say no, but also give them alternatives. So if they really don't have time, And you might combine some of these. You might say, completely understand. Is there somebody else that you would recommend that I would chat with? And then they're like, well, yeah, sure, I can connect you to this person. Or, giving them just some little way, because people, honestly, they want to help. And I'll quickly talk about the non-ask, which is a newer one. And this one is about not actually being specific in your ask, but instead talking about your goals or what you're working on and seeing if they jump and have ideas for you. And I might even say, do you have any ideas? Hey, I'm launching my new book, Nail the Interview, Land the Job. I want to make this a bestseller. Any ideas for me? Any advice? Anyone who'd be interested. So again, it's really very broad, and it's easy for somebody to say, not off the top of my head, but I'll keep it in mind. Great, thank you. And just kind of continue to talk and know what you're working on. All right. So let's bring this kind of to a close, and that brings us to the last law of the book, which is, because it's the hardest, patience, and giving it time, because things will happen in time, and kind of going back to that long-term approach. And there's some things that are important to remember about patience, that this whole thing I talk about, this relationship networking concept, is nonlinear. It may be that the person you help helps you, but it may not. It may be that the person
can I interject a story here?
Absolutely.
Because this is the perfect example. So I am not a particularly patient person. I want things, I want it now, I want to get it done now, especially in business.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm proud to say that Over 40 Females just gained its second national sponsor, and I've been building the company for almost 5 years. And the most current sponsor was on a relationship that I built about 3 years ago. And it came back around full circle, because I kept up with that person. But I didn't keep up with that person because of this potential relationship. I had no idea. But because we had kind of stayed in contact and we were in the same industry, and just checked in with each other once in a while, all of a sudden it's, oh, I'm so-and-so's sister-in-law, and I went to one of your events a couple of years ago, and blah, blah, blah. So it really is a linear thing, and you really can't think, well, I met someone tonight, and hopefully something will happen tomorrow. That's really a huge lesson I've learned over the past couple of years.
I have so many stories like that. You never know. I mean, I ended up publishing my second book with NBC because of somebody my sister went to middle school with and ran into at a restaurant. And she ended up telling him that I was, I just wrote a book and he was the head of NBC Digital Publishing. And next thing you know, I'm writing a book for them. So you just don't know where your results are going to come from. So I want you to really think about the fact that when you take this giving perspective, when you take this long-term perspective, it will come back to you, but maybe not from who you expect.
Right.
And I also want you to be patient with yourself, because I know we want to give and we know we want to be valuable, because we want to be more valuable to other people than they are to us, because that feels good. And I had somebody who was such a value to me early on in my launch. I mean, it was pre-launch, and I just never figured out how to help her for years and years and years. But 5 years in, I figured out how to help her in such a big way, and it was awesome. and the idea that you continue to ask and show and connect, and honestly, what she said to me was, she had this perspective. I said to her, it's because of her that I had sat with a lot of other people, because she sat with me. And for her, that was a gift, knowing that it was paid forward because of her. And so, if we go back to giving for a second, giving credit and giving thanks and giving appreciation and giving recognition, those are things we can all do and are so incredibly valued. So we're being patient with ourselves, we're being patient with our results, and we're being patient with the relationship itself, because, as you say, sometimes we click right away and sometimes it takes time. And we have to, I put a plant there because I always think about my mom talking to her plants. And she's not, but because, she would talk to her plants because they said it was good, the oxygenation and something like that. And she had plants that last 20 years, so clearly she was doing something right. But I always think about that because it needs time to nurture and grow and develop at its own pace. So I promised a couple of gifts because, I believe in giving. It's not up here. Hold on. Where's my gift? Oh. So I'm just going to have to say it because I don't think the slide is up here. But I have some gifts for you. And if you go to Michelle, Michelle, Tillis, Tillis, Lederman, Lederman, and you can see actually the website right up here, the bottom one, .com, and you put /gift pack, GIFTPACK, gift pack. You're going to get lots of fun things. You could get my top 5 success accelerators. You can get a free networking assessment to understand what type of networker you are, the chapter on the law of giving, and the interview prep checklist for those who are in the interview process. So if you go to that gift pack, you get all of the above. You can see the links here are ways to get in touch and connect with me. Please let me know how you heard about me, and I hope to hear from many of you.
Thank you, Michelle. Oh, my gosh, you have so many things that we can learn from and apply right away, and not just about networking, but about relationships and building them over time, and I think it's just terrific. So thank you so much for coming on the teleseminar today.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Absolutely. And thank you, everyone, for joining us for Relationship Networking. We will see you next month. Have a great day.